Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. This is part 3 for this news bulletin today. I'll probably do 4 parts because I have a lot to get to still. We're talking about education, basically brainwashing how the United States and their younger generations will receive less education than their parents. Also talking about people opting to try to go through private schooling because they know what happens in public schools. They're taught to be what? Useful engines in this one world schoolhouse, talking about Thomas the Tank Engine and basically doing what? Telling him to stay on track, right? That just to serve your overseers. Don't worry about being smart or your creative abilities. Just do what you're supposed to do. Be a good cog in the wheel. Contrary to the claim that modern education equips young people for democratic citizenship, the actual development and employment of educational techniques suggests how the overall environment and method utilized in today's public education system for years has been increasingly reshaped to produce useful engines largely incapable of independent thought and personal enfranchisement. But the thing to know is that the system that we have, education system, is based off the Prussian education system, and the most notable individual that pushed that was Horace Mann, who has like statues built after. Lastly, the system's strong socio-political underpinnings lie in the fact that most public school teachers are also products of such training and thus oblivious to the school's overall dehumanizing rituals and scope. Artificial brain passes basic IQ tests, so as humans degrade in that movie, like that movie Idiocracy, the robots and cyborgs and AIs getting smarter. An artificial brain created by neuroscientists at the University of Waterloo in Canada can pass a basic IQ test according to researchers. Watch that video propaganda, the full thing. It's not actually by North Korean. I think it's by like a New Zealander or something like that, or a Chinese person. But, yeah, there's propaganda in it, swaying towards North Korea and Asia. But at the same time, everything that they say about the West it's true. And you'd be surprised how many Americans can't point out United States on a map. It's insane. They don't know where the Atlantic Ocean is, and all kinds of crazy stuff, man. Big Pharma Culture, the Olsen twins designer bag lined with prescription drugs sell for $55,000 each. So in a culture where it's trendy to be a pill popper in our big pharma culture, it's not just the norm, but fully embraced as a badge to display to the public, as Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen have teamed up with a major designer bag laced with major big pharma prescription pills. As amazing as it may be, it says here that they're completely sold out with the price at $39,000. And they're part of this whole culture. I mean, when they first started, that's who they were targeting. They target children, and the biggest market is teenagers, to tell them that they're crap and they're defective. In order to be happy and not defective, they have to buy this product. So they're just like the teachers are. They're perpetuating it. I mean, they had their own businesses, I think, like when they were 12. Next up, middle-class children. And the other thing, too, is that they're promoting this. So all the people, the girls and kids that look up to them as role models, right? Because they have appeal as a celebrity. They're going to look at that and be like, wow, I need to do this, I mean, it really is sick. Middle-class children are at risk of anxiety disorders because parents shelter them from the harsh reality of life. They're growing up in a paranoid culture which protects them from risk, but unable to cope with life's challenges, warning lead psychologists. Of course, it's the psychologists, too, that are there for thought control, that have all these disorders that actually make people so sheltered, right? I mean, Edward Bernays got a lot of his theory on advertising and propaganda from who? From Sigmund Freud, right? So, of course, they have anxiety disorders. They can never be good enough. But I do agree with this to a certain degree, telling your kids that they're great, they're wonderful, they're the best. I mean, that's not always great. You got to tell them out there, you got to tell them to go out and make it for themselves, right? Toughen up. So next up, we have Amsterdam to create Scum Villages. Amsterdam is to create Scum Villages where nuisance neighbors and antisocial tenants, I like that, antisocial tenants, will be exiled from the city and rehoused in caravans or containers with minimal services. Dude, really, they're like trailer trailers or something like that under constant police supervision. Holland's capital already has a special hit squad of municipal officials to identify the worst offenders for a compulsory 6-month course in how to behave or how to stay on track, right? So this is Holland. This was one of the countries that was the least corrupt. Social housing problem families or tenants who do not show an improvement or refuse to go to the special units face eviction and homelessness. So they're definitely serious. It says here, repeat offenders should be forcibly removed from their neighborhood and sent to a village for scum. Put all the trash together. Next up, Monsanto Co seeks to take over Mexico's heartland with GM maize. So they're heading to Mexico now. They've already dominated parts of Europe, United States, South America. Something that's interesting to note while we're on the subject of Mexico and this GM maize is that I don't know if you live in the United States, you as a viewer, but something I've noticed living in the United States, living in South Chicago, I've seen a lot of the Mexican stores, immigrants. I've had friends that are Mexicans, and a lot of the food that they eat is actually a lot healthier. It doesn't have as much crap in there. They even have their own soda or pop that has real sugar in it. So, I think they're just used to that when they're down there. And of course, they come up here, and it's just like they see these big fat blobs walking around. And we're breaking records here in America with diabetes, deaths, suicides, and cancer, and it's all coming from the food, the air, the water. DuPont sends in former cops to enforce seed patents. I've covered this before, but it says here they're sending in dozens of former police officers across North America to prevent a practice generations of farmers once took for granted. So they said here it's evidence of farmers illegally saving them. So it's illegal for them to save seeds from harvest for replanting the next season. It's not allowed under sales contracts. You have the European Union rejects French report linking GM maize to cancer. They just show the big fat tumors on these little mice. But it's not good enough for them. They said they rejected the bombshell French report linking the genetically modified corn to cancer, saying it failed to meet acceptable scientific standards. Of course, because their scientific standards could be laughed at, right, by some scientists, like people that push climate change in that. They call it pseudoscience. But it's funny because when people use things that are known, that especially in Asia, they're really big into the herbs and stuff like that. And people that talk about B17 and Laetrile or amygdalene for fighting cancer, they laugh at that. And that's stuff that's been used for thousands of years, and they call that pseudoscience. But they have the real science. So you go ahead and you be the lab rat, guys. Not you, but the people that don't, that believe that everything's okay and the governments are there to protect them and help keep their food safe. They're experimenting on you. Just like social experiments about people that don't have younger generations that don't have emotional resilience. That's from social engineering. That's from cuddling and telling them that they're greatest and they don't go outside and hate laws and hate speech and bullying and this whole thing about war on bullying and not standing up for yourself and you can't talk about other people and you have to be cooperative and compliant and tolerant. Well, there's going to be blowback. There's going to be engineering blowback. So total ban on importation of genetically modified food, says Kenya. So Kenya is going to be putting a ban on imported GMO. So good for them. Then we have deadly pesticides linked to increased prostate cancer risk. Researchers found a link between pesticide exposure and the development of prostate cancer. Doctors say genetically modified wheat a perfect chronic poison. I've kind of covered this before, but it says here that many people shun wheat for lots of reasons, but they usually cite gluten as the culprit. But a cardiologist and author says it's not gluten that makes modern wheat a perfect chronic poison. It's the fact that genetically modified wheat has become the wheat we know today. See, they experimented on you. But most people didn't know, like in Canada, when they started experimenting on them. When I covered this, remember, it was going all the way back from genetic research in the 60s and 70s to make it an extra 18-inch tall plant. It says here that it actually increases appetite. It says the thing binds into an opiate receptors in your brain and most people stimulates appetite such that we consume 444 more calories per day. Then we have 11,000 hospitalized over artificial pot last year. I warned people that I've seen using this stuff, and they said, and the thing is that they do it. Why? Because they just want to smoke, right? And they can't because they have piss test, You know, most of them, everyone I know, piss test. So that's how it is in the brave new world. And so they smoke this crap, and people are getting hospitalized. 11,500 last year after taking this synthetic drug meant to imitate marijuana. And of course, it was legal at first because they wanted to get it out there and promote it. I like this. In comparison, 461,000 people went to the ER in 2010 after using marijuana itself. So see, I would like to see the numbers of those that with drunk driving, right? That was one of the, I think it was like 200,000 people a year from drunk driving. Smaller, fewer, thinner, the future for American beef. So they say the biggest reason is environmental issues, i.e. the drought, and politics, because we know that the dairy industry is like a complex. You pretty much take food and the dairy industry, the meat industry, and put it in there with the military-industrial complex, because that's what it's a part of, because they do use food as a weapon, and it's run like a military, like a government operation. So highly politicized and subsidized, the meat and dairy industry, not a lot of competition. That's why it's totally unsafe. And, this environmental issue, well, it's a good chance that it was weather modification, and they were just cooking the ionosphere, heated up the temperature, and caused the damn drought. So this is good. This is a good sell, because remember I was talking about, I covered last time when I covered like a big eugenics, whatever, 4 videos a couple weeks ago. What did I talk about? I talked about handmade humans to save the planet. So see, this is going to help brainwash and convince people that, oh, we need smaller, fewer, thinner. That's going to be the future of American beef, right? Is that what the elite's going to be eating? No, they're not. Actually, they're going to push a total vegetarian diet for you. Part of that article about handmade humans is that they actually want to make humans shorter, right? Make them shorter, and actually take little pills that would actually hurt your stomach and make you feel like crap, basically to appetite suppressants. So conventional food may soon be sterilized with microwave zap. Yeah, there's many people who avoid microwaves. Just like everything, I've stopped using the television, watching television 4 years ago. Stopped using the microwave 4 years ago. Stopped smoking regular packaged cigarettes 4 years ago. Stopped drinking tap water 4 years ago. So my health has actually gone up. But using the recent emergence of Salmonella and E. coli in food as a scapegoat, says here the corporation known as MicroZap is seeking its way into the food supply with a new microwave zap technique. It effectively hits food with a super high level of microwave radiation, killing all living bacteria, including good bacteria that is necessary for digestion, just like pasteurization, right? This is part of that fear culture. Get everyone scared and in fear, and they sterilize everything, right? No discrimination. They just take out all the good with the bad. Dispersant makes oil from spills 52 times more toxic. So, as in 2010 Gulf of Mexico disaster, it makes petroleum less visible, but much more harmful. So they just hid it, and it puts it down lower, but it's more toxic than the actual oil. Let's not forget that it's actually possibly morphing into living things. They've actually been replicating little nanoparticles. So, creepy stuff. Again, experimenting. So, why are cows' tails dropping off? Well, I'll sum it up to you in about 5 seconds. Fracking. Fracking. It's just messing up the water tables. So the fracking is causing the chemically laced water, which shatters the surrounding shale and releases fossil fuels. It says here that in 2010, when a crew working at the site continued to force drilling fluid down a well that had sprung a leak, it says here their cattle were limping with swollen legs and infections. Cows quit producing their milk for their calves. They lost from 60 to 80 pounds a week, and their tails mysteriously dropped off. They said lab rats exposed to the carcinogen, a solvent used in fracking, this butyl-exylphenol, whatever, 2, has lost their tails, but a similar connection with cattle hasn't been shown. So see, that's a good sign. Then you have monster sinkholes, an indication that major earth changes are coming along the New Madrid fault line. The most powerful earthquakes in history happened along the New Madrid in 1811, 1812, so about exactly 100 years ago. The government is getting prepared for these things, so I don't mean that they're going to be there to help you. They're just going to be there to keep the slave system, the corporate system running. And you'll, of course, for you, it's going to be very free market and conservative and right-wing. Oh, take care of yourself, right? Today, the New Madrid fault zone covers portions of Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi. However, a major earthquake magnitude of 8.0, which is what scientists are predicting, now that's real science, would have dramatic effect on all the way from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. According to Bloomberg, there's been a six-fold increase in the number of earthquakes that have shaken the central parts of the U.S. from the 2000 to 2011. Please join me in part 4. Thank you.